Hi everyone, I'm Gina K from Gina K Designs and your host of Stamp TV. Today on Stamp TV, I'm going to show you an elegant Christmas card project featuring the Home for the Holidays Stamp TV kit. Let me show you the tools and products you need to make this card project. First, you're going to need some ink, and the inks that I'm going to use today are the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, some of the Gina K Designs Kraft ink, and some VersaMark ink. Then you're going to need some sort of blending tool. I'm just going to use a sponge dauber, but you can use any kind of blending tool you have. I'm also going to use some of the Gina K Designs clear detail embossing powder. Along with that, I'm using the embossing magic pad. Then I've got a little bit of ribbon here. You can use any kind of ribbon you want. I'm going to use this saddle stitched brown. This is a color that looks really good with either our charcoal brown or our dark chocolate. And then for stamps, I'm using the 3 trees image from the Christmas Greenery set, and I'm using the Warm Wishes stamp from the Home for the Holidays stamp set. I also have some adhesive, some foam squares, some scissors, and then for cardstock, I have some of the Gina K layering weight ivory, some charcoal brown, and then I have a card base made with the heavy base weight ivory. I'm also using a Dauber embossing folder, and this is the Swirl Flourish embossing folder. You can use any embossing folder you have. Okay, so to begin, I'm going to start by taking this small piece of layering weight ivory cardstock, and I'm going to use my embossing magic pad and rub all over the surface. Then I'm going to ink up the 3 trees using some VersaMark ink. And you want to make sure you get it nice and inky. It's a little bit difficult to see, but if you turn your piece of cardstock to the side into the light, you can see the shine, so you'll know that you've gotten a good impression. And I'm going to stamp this just a little bit up from the bottom, because I want to leave a little bit of room for my greeting. Okay. Then I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper and I'm going to grab some of that clear embossing powder. And I'm going to sprinkle that all over these trees. Now you want to make sure that if there's any embossing powder anywhere that you don't want it, that you make sure that you brush that away. All right, now I'm going to emboss that using my heat tool. And you don't want to over emboss it. Just emboss it till you see it turn nice and clear and shiny. I have in my stamp room a nice wooden clothespin, and I always forget to bring it into the studio when I'm embossing, but that's a great way to hold your project, especially something small when you're embossing. Okay, so that is done. Now my next step is going to be, let me grab my Cuttlebug here. Open that up. Move that in a bit. So I'm going to use an A and a B plate. I've got the A underneath and the B plate. And then I'm going to use this swirl, this flourishy embossing folder, and I'm going to emboss this piece of ivory cardstock. And this is layering weight cardstock cut at 3 3/4 inches by 5. And I just want to get a little bit of texture on that. You can see how pretty that looks. That's a very pretty embossing folder. So put that aside. And now that this is completely cool, I'm going to let me grab a piece of scrap paper here and get it underneath. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to grab that sponge dauber and a little bit of Kraft ink. And I'm going to ink up this sponge dauber real well with the Kraft ink. And I'm going to start right in the center of the middle tree. And I'm going to start in a circular motion, working my way out. I want to make sure that the darkest part of my ink is in the center of that tree. So that's where I want to start. And you're going to see the image is going to start to appear. And I'm going to go back and forth over the bottoms of these trees and then work my way up with a little bit lighter touch. I'm going to grab a little more ink, and again starting in that same spot. Just going to add that ink. And you can see that I'm not going too heavy toward the edges. I want all of that dark color to be in and around the middle of the trees. So I kind of want that ink to just blend out. Like that. And if you need to add more, you can always go back and add more. It's easier to add more than to take away. Okay, so there we go. Now, I'm going to grab some VersaFine ink and stamp that tiny greeting. Actually, I think I'm going to mount this first onto my charcoal brown panel. That'll make it a little sturdier. When you emboss, even if you heat the gun up first a little bit, it still can warp layering weight cardstock a little bit, and then once you mount that onto a layering piece, then everything is just all nice and stiff again, so it's easier to stamp like that. Alright, so I'm going to grab that VersaFine ink, and I'm going to stamp this Warm Wishes sentiment right down here at the bottom. Then I'm going to layer my Ivory embossed piece onto some more charcoal brown cardstock. Get that even. And then I'm going to add a little bit of ribbon. So here is my brown ribbon, and that's going to get cut right about there, just enough for those little ends to overlap around the sides. So I'm going to lay that out and then put some tape behind it. And then make sure that that's nice and straight the way I want it. And that's looking pretty good. So my next step then is to add this panel to my card base. So that's going to go on there like that. I'm going to add a little bit of tape over those ribbon tails just to help secure those down. Okay. So now my next step is going to be to adhere this panel to my card. And I'm going to do that using some foam squares. So when it's a bigger panel like this and it's embossed, I like to use 3 foam squares just to help flatten everything out and keep it nice and secure. We peel the liners off. Get those out of the way. Alright, and then this panel is going to go right here onto my card base. Then I'm going to grab one more piece of ribbon. I'm going to slide that up under that piece of ribbon and just tie a little knot. Like that. And then I'm going to press underneath to make sure that they're both kind of folded outward rather than cupped up. I just stuck my finger under there and kind of pushed that out. Same thing on this side. And that makes it a little bit easier to trim. All right. And so there is my finished card project. Let me put it up against this gray. It looks a little bit brighter than you can see it. So that's my finished card project, and that uses colors that are in the Home for the Holidays Stamp TV kit, the charcoal brown and the ivory. Now I made another version of this card and I want to show it to you, and this uses colors that aren't in the kit. These are more of the cool tone colors. So let me grab that one. For this one I used white cardstock. And then I used white embossing powder. You can still use clear embossing powder because of the white cardstock underneath, but I just used white because that's what I grabbed first. And then I used our powder blue cardstock, and I used a snowflake embossing powder and some black ribbon. So this is another version of the card. So you have the warm toned card using the ivory and the warm browns, and then you have the cool toned card using the white and the powder blue. So those are my finished card projects. I hope you've enjoyed today's Stamp TV video. Stay tuned to Stamp TV for more holiday projects featuring the Home for the Holidays Stamp TV kit. And thanks so much for watching.